now to Dr. Morris Barenfus. Dr. Barenfus is an emeritus science professor from Bethany University. He holds a doctorate in veterinary medicine from the University of Pennsylvania. He has held various academic positions at UCLA, UC Santa Cruz, and Cardinal College. And he's been helping Scotts Valley Senior Life Association to expand our efforts in helping senior citizens lead healthy and happy lives right here at Scotts Valley. Dr. Barenfus.
Allow my colleague who set the precedent to sit and share with you a few moments. The greatest challenge I have is being the last speaker and being short and to the point. One of my challenges. But I am relieved that I can be a fathead and have as much vitamin D and not become a bonehead. And something for each of my colleagues here. Valerie, in her presentation, you can't see it, but there's a little pillow that just sort of went high on its own. And I guess if there were no ceiling, it would just keep going higher and higher. Thank you for your presentation. And as far as herbs, I have to tell you, my subject, placebo effect, when I was a child at the height of the polio epidemic, a few of you might remember, and my mom put together just a little bag that she sewed with a ribbon, and in it were some herbs that she put together. To this day, I don't know, but I never got polio. And so I'm an advocate of alternatives. However, I find myself in the challenging position of representing, as I might say, traditional science and medicine. And if you take a moment on my handout, there are just 2 points I want to make. One, that we don't even realize how magnificent our bodies are designed. If you want to give credit to our Maker, bless our Maker. But we are indeed gloriously made, and I love the phrase, the wisdom of the body. And as you look at those gears, just on metabolism, the chemistry of life, I have to tell you that mechanically, we are nothing like that, but it gives us some beginning of an analogy that there has to be an interconnectedness to all our functions, all our systems, all our organs, and particularly the biochemistry. And so I just inserted below that a map of enzyme reactions, and you can see it can be considered countless. Before I go back to that, I'd like to point out maybe the main part of my presentation is to give you 3 websites at the bottom of reliable sources of information on research having to do with the placebo effect, alternatives. We are looking at a new era where so many years have been spent by the medical establishment. There have been a few remarks here about the medical and pharmaceutical establishment, and much of it has been about doubt and disdain toward some untraditional, whether we say alternative, even complementary, that they come together and function together. But ultimately, you need someone to help guide you. Even integrative medicine, some guidance on how to bring these things together. So it's great to hear we have some people that are strong in their area of recommendations. And Yesterday, I received an interesting email that having to do with the wisdom of the body, but looking heavenward. There is a group at the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. Earlier this year, they announced that there are 50 billion free-floating planets in our Milky Way galaxy. Those are planets that are not going around a star like the sun. And that is in addition to the 200 billion stars in our galaxy and many more planets. And if you go beyond, you know, like Carl Sagan, some of you remember, billions and billions and billions, we have no idea what we're part of. And so going back to the enzyme systems and the body, the chemistry of the body is relentlessly and awesome, majestic. And so I want to use that as the very important bottom line. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. So anything that we do to enhance nutritionally, like Hippocrates, we don't want to get in the way. Acupuncture, we don't want to get in the way of the body's natural systems of healing. That was very important in what Hippocrates said about do no harm, physicians. Make way for the natural healing process. Now, in a way, the modern scientist who is interested in this world of trying to explain how alternatives used. Let's take the word placebo. What is a placebo? Usually we think of placebos, as I go back in my medical training, it's something that has no real effect. It's inert. And the classic idea of the placebo is a sugar pill. Way back in my practice, this ancient of days, along with the dinosaurs, you know, green sugar pills, pink sugar pills, white sugar pills. And even today, many physicians use placebos, nothing short of sugar pills. Or if you talk about an impure placebo, let's say you go to the doctor and you've got a respiratory condition and you get an antibiotic shot. Antibiotics don't work on viruses, but how often people get better. So there are many forms of so-called impure placebos. And if I have a little time, maybe the most important factor in the placebo effect, that is somebody getting better, and on the process of healing, just the doctor-patient or healer-patient interchange. That is very important. The difference between whether it is any of our folks here or a physician, somebody that is abrupt, somebody that is insensitive, instead of somebody warm, caring, and really has interest in what you're saying, instead of just, you know, I just think of exchanges with a doctor where he, she might be more interested in entering things on the computer than what you're really saying. So caring and responsiveness, that is part also of a so-called placebo effect. And science has spent so many years doubting and disdaining these kinds of effects. There are medical historians that are now telling us that perhaps the whole history of medicine is one of a placebo effect. Thousands and thousands and thousands of drugs from antiquity that have had benefit, but no understanding of why or how. In my graduate studies, I took pathology in both medical and veterinary school at the University of Pennsylvania. Very interested in disease and disease causation. And one of the most Life-Changing Books was a little book first published in 1932, The Wisdom of the Body. That's why I included that term with my little enzyme chart. And Walter Buchanan was chairman of the physiology department at the medical school at Harvard. And he coined the term, many of you know, the fight or flight response. Humans and animals have much of our anxiety. We don't even realize how much of our anxiety is stress that we are trying to escape or resist or work against or fight against some kind of challenge. And one of those, needless to say, I should say many of those, disease and pain and all the disturbed function. As a matter of fact, the word inflammation came up, and I had to learn the basics. Rubor, redness, I had to learn the Latin terms. Calor, heat, dull or pain. These are the cardinal signs of inflammation. Well, inflammation is a response. People say fever. This person or this animal has a temperature. Well, when we say fever, we mean the temperature's out of normal range. And Dr. Cannon did some of the earliest research having to do with what we call homeostasis. The body has a way of trying to bring back into balance when there is something that disturbs that balance. And needless to say, infection is one of them, but stress may be also. Many times we don't realize where our stress is coming from. But there's no doubt that there are many, many myriads of effects. So he was a pioneer in understanding that the body has certain constant steady states, like body temperature. He was a pioneer in learning about the regulation of sugar, blood sugar, glucose metabolism, which is now so vital to understand diabetes. So as we grow in greater understanding, this is a part of science that we have to appreciate. In their skepticism, they are also trying to continually make new discoveries and try to validate old discoveries or invalidate. So they play a role in society. I'm afraid to say, just like parents and grandparents are not necessarily appreciated for their role. So anyway, Walter Cannon observed many years ago, only by understanding the wisdom of the body shall we attain the mastery of disease and pain, which will enable us to relieve the burden of mankind. Disease is a great, great burden. 2 minutes left, so by golly, here we go. A great classic physician, Greek physician, Galen, many years ago in the Roman Empire, he had 820 placebo remedies. And we don't realize that it's not just empty, inert, but we need the wisdom of our body to also respond favorably. And he had this prophetic insight. He cures most successfully in whom the people have most confidence. It is our role to find, to research, ask questions here. Where did you get your training? What is this certificate on the wall? Where did you learn this or that? Those are questions that people are sometimes intimidated not to ask and inquire. Who is this person? Can you rely? Can you trust this individual that's giving you this recommendation? So real quickly, placebos were used in science in the 60s. The Food and Drug Administration required placebo-controlled studies. That I'm looking at something came in earlier in the month, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial to evaluate the efficacy and safety of a drug for Alzheimer's disease. So people are relegated blindly. They don't know what group they're in. The physician doesn't know what group. Double-blind into a group that is either receiving the medication or receiving no medication or receiving a placebo. The same pill, but doesn't have the drug. So placebos were a comparison to whether a drug has efficacy. And also, if it has efficacy, it has to be tested for safety. But now science recognizes that the placebo effect is also part of our response to all manner. So you're seeing more and more evidence and research. Whatever has been described here, the body is working with it, or you know when it's not.
I agree with much of what you're saying, but as a veterinarian, how does that apply with animals?
Believe it or not, you can give sugar pills and they get better because the owners change their attitude. And sometimes the best therapy of placebo is one doctor at UC Davis said, let's amputate the patient from the owner. Because sometimes the worst things is what the dog or cat is fed, their environment, and so you just take them in the hospital and observe them a few days, and they may get better.
I have to add one thing to this, which is the Bach flower remedies, which are, I think, Bach flower remedies. So homeopathic doses of flowers to cure all kinds of
Yes.
And it's really very interesting how this was created by this doctor who kind of flipped out on Western medicine way back when. He went to the countryside and started finding all these flowers and giving them for different conditions. And they were working. And to this day, these flowers continue to work.
Yes.
So that the imprint of a person's intention can be transferred over decades.
Yes.
Is my conclusion.
Well, Philadelphia, where I had my primary and graduate education, was a center for homeopathic medicine. And to this day, it's just amazing the results that are gotten from what seems to be just diluted something.
I know.
Very good. Any other questions for Dr. Barenfus? Okay. Oh, yes, go
I
ahead.
just want to applaud you for being able to hear you. Your enthusiasm, our desire to become fascinating.
Well, thank you, and that's one of the benefits of being more and more deaf as we get older.
Okay, well, we're going to open things up for the whole panel. We have a few minutes now. We can ask any questions you might like of anybody on the panel or ask them all to comment as you choose. Any questions for that? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a greeting for Dr. Pierre. Not a question, just a greeting.
Okay, this is just specifically for you. Oh, wait, do we have any questions for that? Yes, right here.
I have two, actually. One is for anybody, what do you think of the current craze of tutor? And the other, my other question was for Dr. Valerie. Topical applications of CD.
So the question was, what about turmeric and topical, and secondly, what about topical application of cannabis or marijuana? So what do I think about turmeric? Well, personally, I use high-dose turmeric for pain, along with some THC, depending, and I will often, I take turmeric orally, and it's the curcumin that is a pain reliever, anti-inflammatory. CBD is also an anti-inflammatory, and THC is a pain reliever. Now, when I'm speaking about THC or CBD, I'm still talking about it within the context of a whole plant. So what we do is we make extracts. So we use different formulations and different extraction processes because people respond to different extracts in different ways. They're more, depending on the individual, more useful. And so what I mean is by an extract is a really strong, it's the whole plant, but it's taking it in, cooking it down so that you have a stronger application. You can take less of it. Now, when some of it is not cooked, so it's still in the raw form. I think topical applications are remarkable and effective, but it takes a great deal to penetrate the skin and to enter into the bloodstream. So we use coconut oil. I have been told that, and coconut oil is not always good for everyone because some people have allergies to coconuts. We have other formulations. I have been told, though, that some people can feel THC. So one has to be cautious about an application. Individualized applications, even individualized applications of placebos are really important. And I believe the reason is that it is the relationship, both in a personal understanding and in the practitioner, whoever your practitioner is. It doesn't mean that you can't go find a formulation, because I've used many of yours and have found them really quite effective. You can, and plants are different than using allopathic medicines. I believe that the future of all medicine, when it can be, enough money can be made off of it, will be individualized applications where we look at a person to see what the whole body, the environment, the internal environment requires, what's out of balance. And what placebo or other medication, plant application that it may need. So that's, yeah, and I like turmeric a lot.
Other questions from the panel?
You guys hungry?
Well, let me just take a moment to thank a few people. The team that put on, arranged for today's event, include Maxine McCarthy in the back there. Barenfus. And a number of helpers have been helping us put on this event. Tom Fagundes, Diane Cohen, Jeanette Sargent Hamill, Rachel Devereaux, Kevin McCarthy, and Greg Edmondson. We want to thank all of you. Also, if we have some able-bodied people in the room when we get ready to go, if you would help put chairs away, that would be a big help to everybody. Thank you very much. And so, these are people we particularly have to thank. And, Maxine is telling me that we have little orange sheets of paper. She's waiting around there. Please make sure that you fill out one of those. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we particularly need to thank this wonderful panel that we had today. Okay, let's have some refreshments.